Okay, so you want to own a billboard, a steel structure on the side of a highway. Advertisers pay you every month to display their message. You do not work there. You do not staff it. You just collect rent from a 672 square foot sign that sits next to the freeway while 50,000 cars drive past it every single day. Sounds like the perfect passive income business. And honestly, from the outside, it really does look that way. But here is what people who actually own billboard portfolios know, and what most people selling billboard investment courses never tell you. A billboard is not a mailbox that prints money. It is a regulated real estate play combined with a media sales operation that exists in a permanently hostile regulatory environment where cities actively try to eliminate you, where your revenue depends entirely on one hyper-competitive sales process, and where your asset can be rendered worthless overnight by a single zoning change you have no control over. The economics are real. The risks are real, in ways that most people never see coming. Let's start at the beginning. When people say billboard, they are usually picturing one thing: a large rectangular sign on a steel pole structure next to a highway or major road. Static vinyl print stretched across a frame, maybe 14 feet tall by 48 feet wide. It displays one advertiser's message for weeks or months at a time, then the vinyl gets replaced with a new advertisement. That is a traditional bulletin, also called a static billboard, and it is the format that has dominated the outdoor advertising industry for over a century. But the industry has split into two distinct categories: static billboards, the traditional vinyl print format, and digital billboards, LED screens that rotate multiple advertisements every 8 to 10 seconds throughout the day. A single digital billboard can display 6 to 8 different advertisers per minute, which means you are not selling one ad space per billboard, you are selling dozens. The economics of those two formats are completely different. The startup costs are different. The revenue potential is different. The regulatory opposition is different. We will get to that. Here is something that surprises people when they first look at this industry. The United States has approximately 350,000 billboards currently operating across the country. Of those, roughly 9,500 are digital. That is less than 3%. But those digital billboards generate a disproportionate share of total industry revenue because they can sell the same physical location to multiple advertisers simultaneously. The entire industry generated about $8.6 billion in revenue in 2024. The top three companies, Lamar Advertising, Clear Channel Outdoor, which is now part of iHeartMedia, and Outfront Media, control roughly 60% of that revenue. That leaves about $3.4 billion split among thousands of independent operators, small regional firms, and family-owned billboard companies that have been running the same 50 signs for 40 years. This is a deeply fragmented industry where the barriers to entry are not capital, they are regulatory. The hardest part of owning a billboard is not building it. It is getting permission to build it in the first place. Before you spend a single dollar, you need to understand something fundamental. You do not need to own the land to own a billboard. You just need the right to place a structure on someone else's land. This is done through a ground lease, also called a land lease, where you pay a property owner a monthly fee for the right to install and operate a billboard on a small portion of their property. The ideal location is next to a major highway or arterial road with high traffic counts. The industry standard is a minimum of 25,000 to 30,000 vehicles per day, but the premium locations have 60,000 to 150,000 plus vehicles per day. You want good visibility, a long approach so drivers have time to read the message, and ideally a natural pause point near an exit ramp, a stoplight, or a merge lane where traffic slows down. You are looking for commercial or industrial zoned land because residential zone parcels almost never allow billboards. Gas stations, shopping centers, warehouse facilities, vacant land next to highways, agricultural parcels near suburban expansion zones. You approach the landowner and offer them a ground lease. A typical ground lease for a single billboard location pays the landowner between $500 and $2,500 per month, depending on traffic count, location desirability, and regional market rates. In high-value markets like Los Angeles, Atlanta, or South Florida, premium locations can command $4,000 to $8,000 per month. In rural markets, $300 to $800 per month. The lease term is typically 10 to 20 years with renewal options. You want as long a term as possible because you are about to invest $30,000 to $150,000 plus building a structure on land you do not own. If the lease expires and the landowner does not renew, you have to remove your billboard at your own expense and you lose the location. Most ground leases include annual rent escalations, 2% to 4% per year, tied to CPI or a fixed percentage. You are committing to paying that landowner every single month whether the billboard has an advertiser on it or not. You have the land rights. Now comes the part that kills most billboard projects before they ever begin. Permitting. Billboards are regulated at the federal, state, and local level, and every single layer of regulation is designed to limit or reduce the number of billboards, not encourage them. The Federal Highway Beautification Act of 1965 gave states the authority to control outdoor advertising along interstate and federal highways. Most states responded by imposing strict spacing requirements, size limits, and zoning restrictions. A typical state requires a minimum spacing of 500 to 1,500 feet between billboards on the same side of the highway. Some states require 1,000 feet from schools, churches, or parks. Some prohibit billboards entirely in scenic or historic corridors. Vermont, Maine, Hawaii, and Alaska have outright bans or severe restrictions on billboards. At the local level, cities and counties impose their own zoning ordinances. Many cities have complete bans on new billboard construction. Los Angeles, San Diego, Houston, and dozens of other major cities have not issued a new billboard permit in years, sometimes decades. They have declared themselves billboard moratoriums, meaning the only way to operate a billboard is to buy an existing permitted structure from someone who already has one. In cities that do allow new permits, the process is brutal. You submit an application with engineered drawings, environmental impact assessments, traffic studies, and proof of property owner consent. The application goes to the Planning Commission, which holds a public hearing. Local residents show up and oppose it. They always oppose it. Nobody wants a billboard in their neighborhood. If you are near residential areas, historic districts, or parks, your permit will likely be denied. If you are in a purely commercial or industrial corridor, you have a chance, but the approval process takes 6 to 18 months and costs $5,000 to $25,000 in application fees, engineering, legal costs, and consulting fees before you know if you are approved. And even after approval, the permit comes with conditions. Maximum height, typically 30 to 60 feet depending on the location. Maximum sign face area, usually 300 to 672 square feet for a bulletin. Lighting restrictions, some jurisdictions do not allow illumination at all. Others require shielding to prevent light pollution. Structural engineering certifications to prove the sign can withstand wind loads, typically 90 to 110 miles per hour wind ratings depending on the region. Here is the reality. In growth markets with reasonable permitting environments, small towns, exurban corridors, secondary highways, you might get a permit in 6 to 12 months with a 60% to 70% success rate if you choose your sites carefully. In restrictive urban markets, your success rate is close to zero unless you are buying existing permitted locations. Let's say you are in a permittable market. You have your ground lease locked in. You have your permit approved. Now you need to build the structure. A standard static billboard has a few key components. The monopole or support structure, typically a steel pole 40 to 60 feet tall, sometimes a single pole monopole, sometimes a double pole design depending on size and wind load. The sign face structure, the rectangular frame that holds the vinyl advertisement, typically 14 feet by 48 feet for a standard bulletin, the largest common format. The catwalk, a small platform and ladder system that allows workers to safely access the sign face to install and remove vinyl. The electrical system if the sign is illuminated, conduit, wiring, and LED floodlights or internal lighting. And the foundation, a concrete base engineered to support the structure and wind loads, usually 6 to 10 feet deep. You need an engineer to design the structure and stamp the drawings for the building permit. You need a foundation contractor to drill and pour the concrete base. You need a steel fabricator to build the pole and sign frame. You need an electrical contractor if the sign is illuminated. If you are building a digital billboard, the cost multiplies. The structure itself is similar, but instead of a vinyl frame, you are installing a LED screen. A 14 by 48 digital billboard screen, high-resolution, outdoor-rated, with proper brightness for daylight visibility, 5,000 to 7,000 nits, costs between $150,000 and $300,000 for the screen alone. Add the structure, electrical service, which is much more substantial for a digital sign, permitting installation, and you are looking at $250,000 to $450,000 all in for a single digital billboard. But the revenue potential is also much higher. We will get to that. You have the billboard built. Now comes the part most people underestimate: selling the advertising space. A billboard does not generate revenue automatically. It generates revenue when an advertiser pays you to display their message. And finding those advertisers, negotiating rates, managing contracts, and keeping the sign occupied is a continuous sales operation. There are two ways to sell billboard advertising: direct sales and agency sales. Direct sales means you, or a salesperson you hire, calls local businesses and pitches them on advertising on your sign. A car dealership, a personal injury lawyer, a furniture store, a regional restaurant chain. You negotiate a rate, typically a 4-week or 12-week contract, and the client provides the artwork or you arrange production of the vinyl print. When the contract ends, you sell the space again. Agency sales means you contract with a national or regional advertising agency that represents brands running multi-market campaigns. McDonald's, Geico, Coca-Cola, movie studios. The agency negotiates bulk rates across hundreds of billboards in multiple markets. You are one sign in a 50-sign package. The rates are lower per sign, but the contracts are longer and the payment is more reliable. The revenue a billboard generates depends entirely on location, traffic count, and market demand. Let's talk real numbers. A static billboard in a small market, 25,000 to 40,000 cars per day, in a secondary or tertiary city, typically rents for $600 to $1,500 per 4-week period. That is $7,800 to $19,500 per year if you keep it rented 100% of the time. A static billboard in a mid-sized market, 50,000 to 80,000 cars per day, near a major city, rents for $1,200 to $3,500 per 4-week period. Annual revenue, $15,600 to $45,500. A static billboard in a major metro market, 100,000 plus cars per day, premium location near a downtown or high-traffic corridor, rents for $3,000 to $8,000 per 4-week period. Annual revenue, $39,000 to $104,000. But here is the problem. Your billboard is not rented 100% of the time. Industry average occupancy rates for static billboards run between 65% and 85% depending on the market and your sales effectiveness. A 75% occupancy rate means your sign is dark, displaying nothing, or a public service announcement 25% of the year. At $2,000 per period and 75% occupancy, your annual revenue is not $26,000. It is $19,500. Digital billboards have completely different economics. Because a digital sign can rotate 6 to 8 advertisers in a single minute, you are not selling one space, you are selling multiple slots. The industry calls these rotations or spots. A typical digital billboard runs an 8-second display per advertiser in a rotating loop. If you sell 6 advertisers on a single digital board, each paying $1,000 per 4-week period for their 8-second rotation, that is $6,000 per period, or $78,000 per year. Premium digital boards in major markets sell rotations for $2,000 to $5,000 plus per advertiser per period. A fully sold digital billboard with 6 to 8 advertisers can generate $150,000 to $400,000 plus in annual revenue. This is why the industry has been converting static to digital wherever permits allow. The revenue per structure is 3x to 8x higher. But you cannot just convert a static billboard to digital. You need a new permit, and most jurisdictions have strict limits or outright bans on new digital billboards because of concerns about driver distraction and light pollution. In many cities, the only way to operate a digital billboard is to participate in a conversion program where you voluntarily remove multiple old static billboards in exchange for permission to build one new digital board. Lamar Advertising, the largest pure-play billboard company in the U.S., operates approximately 3,600 digital billboards out of a total portfolio of over 150,000 advertising faces. Those 3,600 digital boards, representing less than 2.5% of their total faces, generate roughly 30% of their revenue. Let's talk about what it costs to operate a billboard once it is built and generating revenue. Ground lease payments: $500 to $2,500 per month, $6,000 to $30,000 per year. This is your biggest fixed cost and it never goes away. Electricity, if the billboard is illuminated. A static billboard with LED floodlights uses roughly 1,500 to 3,000 watts when lit, running 12 hours per night. Monthly electric cost, $60 to $150. A digital billboard uses 8,000 to 15,000 watts continuously. Monthly electric cost, $400 to $1,200. Annually, $4,800 to $14,400 for a digital sign. Vinyl production and installation for static signs. Each time you change the advertisement, you need new vinyl printed and installed. Printing a 14 by 48 vinyl costs $400 to $800. Installation labor, $300 to $600. If you change the ad 6 times per year, that is $4,200 to $8,400 annually. Some operators build this cost into the advertising rate, others charge it separately. Maintenance and repairs. Lighting systems fail. Bulbs burn out. Electrical components corrode. Steel structures need repainting every 5 to 10 years. Foundations can settle or crack. Wind damage happens. Digital screens develop dead pixels, entire panels fail, and eventually need replacement after 8 to 12 years of operation. For a static billboard, annual maintenance runs $500 to $2,000 per year. For a digital billboard, budget $3,000 to $8,000 per year, plus a capital reserve for eventual screen replacement. Insurance. General liability and property insurance for a billboard runs $400 to $1,500 per year depending on size and location. Property taxes. In most states, billboards are considered personal property or real property improvements and are taxable. Annual property tax varies wildly, $200 to $3,000 plus depending on assessed value and local tax rates. Sales commissions if you use a salesperson or agency. Typical commission is 10% to 20% of the ad sale. Permit renewals and fees. Some jurisdictions charge annual renewal fees, $100 to $1,000 per year. Let's run the numbers on a typical static billboard. You built it for $50,000. Ground lease is $1,200 per month, $14,400 per year. You rent the sign for $2,000 per 4-week period at 75% occupancy, generating $19,500 in annual revenue. Your costs: ground lease $14,400, electricity $1,200, vinyl production and installation $6,000, maintenance $1,000, insurance $600, property tax $800, permits $300. Total annual operating costs, $24,300. You are losing $4,800 per year. The billboard does not cover its own operating costs. This is the harsh reality of marginal locations. If your traffic count is not high enough, if your location is not visible enough, if the market demand is not strong enough, your revenue does not cover your lease and operating expenses. You are paying to operate a billboard that is slowly bankrupting you. Now let's run the numbers on a well-located static billboard. Same $50,000 construction cost. Ground lease is $1,800 per month, $21,600 per year. The location is premium, 70,000 cars per day. You rent the sign for $3,500 per period at 80% occupancy, generating $36,400 annually. Costs: lease $21,600, electricity $1,400, vinyl $6,500, maintenance $1,200, insurance $700, property tax $1,200, permits $400. Total operating costs, $33,000. Operating profit, $3,400 per year. On a $50,000 investment, that is a 6.8% annual return before taxes. It will take you 14.7 years to recover your initial capital. That is not passive income. That is a very slow real estate play. Now let's look at a digital billboard. Construction cost $350,000. Ground lease, $3,000 per month, $36,000 per year. You sell 6 advertiser rotations at $1,800 per period each, 90% occupancy because digital is easier to sell. Annual revenue, $113,400. Costs, lease $36,000, electricity $9,600, maintenance and tech support $6,000, insurance $1,800, property tax $3,500, permits $800. Total operating costs, $57,700. Operating profit, $55,700 per year. On a $350,000 investment, that is a 15.9% annual return. You recover your capital in 6.3 years. After that, the sign generates $55,000 plus annually in relatively passive income. This is why sophisticated operators focus exclusively on digital in high-traffic locations. The unit economics are fundamentally better. But here is the risk that can destroy your entire investment overnight. Regulatory changes. Cities hate billboards. Advocacy groups hate billboards. Scenic America, a national nonprofit, has spent decades lobbying for billboard removal. Hundreds of cities have passed amortization ordinances that force existing billboards to be removed after a certain number of years, typically 5 to 10 years, regardless of whether they are legally permitted and operating. In 2013, the city of Austin, Texas passed an ordinance requiring all off-premise signs, billboards, to be removed by 2017. Hundreds of billboard operators faced the complete loss of their assets. The industry sued. The case went to court. Eventually, a settlement allowed some signs to remain, but dozens were removed. This is not theoretical. It happens constantly. A new city council gets elected. Your only protection is grandfathering, also called a legal non-conforming use. If your billboard was legally permitted before the new ordinance, some jurisdictions allow it to remain as long as it is maintained. But if it is destroyed by a storm, or if you let the permit lapse, or if you stop using it for more than 90 days, you lose the grandfathered status and cannot rebuild. Then there is the existential threat. Highway expansion or road reconfiguration. Your billboard faces northbound traffic on a highway. The Department of Transportation announces a highway widening project. When construction finishes, the road has been realigned. Your sign now faces a sound wall or is set back 200 feet from the road behind trees. Your visibility is destroyed. Your revenue drops by 70%. You cannot move the sign without a new permit, which you probably cannot get. This happens regularly. Billboard companies negotiate with DOT during planning phases. Sometimes they get compensated, sometimes they get relocation rights, sometimes they get nothing. The billboard business is not just a media sales operation. It is a continuous political and legal fight to defend your existing assets while trying to incrementally add new ones in the shrinking number of places that still allow them. Let's talk about the operators who succeed. They do not own 5 billboards. They own 50 or 500 or 5,000. They build portfolio scale. They hire dedicated sales teams who do nothing but sell billboard inventory. They negotiate bulk pricing with vinyl printers. They have maintenance crews on staff who can change a vinyl or repair a light without calling a contractor. They have relationships with landowners and real estate brokers who call them first when a new development opens up a potential billboard location. They have attorneys and lobbyists who fight zoning battles and negotiate with municipalities. Lamar Advertising owns over 150,000 advertising faces and generated $1.9 billion in revenue in 2023. Outfront Media operates over 80,000 displays. These companies have the scale to weather regulatory changes, absorb losses on underperforming signs, and invest in high-cost digital conversions. The independent owner with 3 to 10 signs is playing a completely different game. You are doing your own sales, your own maintenance, your own permit battles. You are outgunned by the big players who can outbid you on premium locations and outspend you on legal fights. The strategy that works for small operators is hyperlocal focus. You dominate one corridor, one county, one region. You build relationships with local advertisers, car dealers, lawyers, medical practices, and you lock in long-term contracts. You keep your costs low by doing as much work as possible yourself. And you carefully select only the highest probability locations, ignoring anything that is not a clear financial winner. Let's run the numbers two ways. Best case scenario. You are in a growth market with reasonable permitting. You identify 3 high-traffic locations, 60,000 plus cars per day each. Ground leases are $1,500 per month each. You build 3 static billboards for $45,000 each, $135,000 total. You aggressively sell the inventory yourself. Within 9 months, all 3 signs are consistently occupied at 85%. Revenue per sign, $32,000 per year. Total revenue, $96,000. Operating costs per sign, lease $18,000, electric $1,200, vinyl $6,000, maintenance $1,000, insurance $600, tax $900, permits $300, total $28,000 per sign. Total operating costs, $84,000. Operating profit, $12,000 per year. Not amazing, but you have built $135,000 in assets generating $12,000 annually. By year 5, you have paid off any debt, and the signs generate $12,000 per year in relatively passive income as long as you keep them sold. You use that cash flow to fund a 4th and 5th sign. By year 10, you have 8 billboards generating $35,000 to $50,000 per year. That is a meaningful side business or supplemental retirement income. Realistic scenario. You build 2 signs in marginal locations because those were the only permits you could get. Traffic counts are lower than you hoped, 35,000 cars per day. Construction costs ran over budget, $58,000 each, $116,000 total. Ground leases are $1,000 per month each. You struggle to sell the inventory. Occupancy averages 55%. Revenue per sign, $11,000 per year. Total revenue, $22,000. Operating costs per sign, lease $12,000, electric $1,000, vinyl $4,000, maintenance $1,200, insurance $600, tax $600, permits $200, total $19,600 per sign. Total costs, $39,200. You are losing $17,200 per year. After 2 years of losses, you realize the locations are not viable. You try to sell the billboards, but nobody wants them because the numbers do not work. You abandon the leases and walk away. You are out $116,000 plus 2 years of losses. The difference between those 2 outcomes is not effort. It is location quality, traffic count accuracy, market demand assessment, and permit risk evaluation before you spend a dollar. The outdoor advertising industry is a $8.6 billion market. There are families that have built generational wealth owning billboard portfolios. There are individual signs that generate $150,000 to $300,000 plus per year in markets like Times Square or Sunset Boulevard. But those are the exceptions. The median billboard in America generates $12,000 to $25,000 in annual revenue, operates on thin margins, and exists in a regulatory environment that would prefer it did not exist. The people who succeed treat this like a real estate business, not a passive income scheme. They understand lease negotiations, zoning law, permit strategy, traffic engineering, and media sales. They build slowly, choose locations carefully, and operate with financial discipline.